All right. Should have everybody joining now. Hey there, this is David Scott Peters, creator of the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. We've got some of the technology things working right now, but I want to make sure it works for everybody. So do me a favor. Let me know who you are, name of your restaurant, where you're calling from. I'm going to look in the chat window. That means you can hear me, and we're getting started within the next 2 minutes. I'm looking over here. There should be a chat function in your webinar control panel. Hey, Dan Dunsky, how are you, my friend? It's been a long time. I see you on there. Hey, Charlotte, how are you? A lot of people on here. This is fantastic. Hey, Peter, what's going on, my friend? I hope catering is going well, and I haven't heard from you about that other location yet. But, yep, hey, what's going on? There we are. Angelo, what's going on? Well, actually, it's Paul. Look at that. You're using Angelo's login. Lacey, good to see you. Hey, what's going on? So I'm really glad. That means that the sound is working. We're going to get started here in how about right now? This is David Scott Peters, creator of the Restaurant Prosperity Formula, and I'm excited about today. It's been a while since you've seen me online. There's been a lot of transitions going on. I'll kind of share that with you in my new bio. But today we're going to talk about the 5 things that successful restaurant owners know and what they do when it comes to accounting. Right? I mean, this is one of those things. It's one of those necessities. If I talk to my business partner, Ann Gannon, and we talk about accounting, it's one of those things that no matter what happens in the economy, no matter what happens in our restaurant, government doesn't care. You've got to file your taxes. You've got to have good numbers. You've got to make sure it's all there. So it's a matter of what do successful people do? What are the best restaurant owners? What do they do? And that's what today is about. Now, for those of you who don't know me, the majority of you I'm looking on here, most of you know me for a long time now, but those of you who don't know, I grew up in my family's restaurant and catering business back in Linwood, New Jersey, where I worked for the toughest manager I know. If you ever worked for your mom, you know it sucks. Now, while I hated it as a teenager, she did me a favor. Why? Because she created a work ethic in me and my sister that nobody else had around us, because she said there'd be no favoritism. And in doing so, every job I had after, I elevated very quickly because I had a work ethic, again, like nobody else. I worked for an independent brew pub and cafe in the early 90s called Coyote Springs Brewing Company and Cafe. I started as a bartender, worked my way up into management, worked my way up. Next thing you know, I'm the operations manager of a multi-unit brew pub chain. This is when we were just kind of getting on the ground, and brew pubs were opening one a week. Now we're seeing that resurgence today. Hopefully, as an industry, you realize you got to have great food and great service, not just great beer, because that's kind of a fallacy. And that's why a lot of brew pubs went out after the early 90s when they all opened up. Well, I moved my way into operations manager, and we opened our second location. And our second location was much like owning a boat. If anybody's ever owned a boat, you know it's a hole in water in which you throw money. As one made it, the other one just sucked it dry. And we had problem after problem after problem. This is where I developed systems to control those problems. I learned a lot, and I'll talk a little bit later in this webinar, a little bit about some of my experience and why it's applicable to what we're doing today. Well, I decided at one point in time it was time for me to move on, and I went to work for a company called Famous Sam's, a 30-unit restaurant sports bar chain in Arizona as a franchisor. I was a director of operations. We're opening 8 stores. Guys bought the company and would take it public. We were going gangbusters. Unbelievable. I mean, it was just, I had brought in my own operations team. I developed a new training program. It was incredible. In under a year, they damn near bankrupted the company. Now, as upper management left, I'm like, if they're all leaving, I don't want to stick around. So I went and taught at Scottsdale Culinary Institute, management, human resources, wines, and spirits. Not a chef type, but I can run a kitchen with the right systems in place. While I was teaching, I was consulting. And one of my clients was a minority shareholder of Famous Sam's who actually took control of the company, became the majority shareholder, bailed it out. And they kept asking me to come back, and I kept saying no, no, no. And it was about 2 months before my first child was born. I said, okay. I ended up back at Famous Sam's as a chief operating officer, and I was given the goal to turn the company around and sell it in 5 years. I missed that goal by 3 months. See, I know what it is to be an independent operator. I know what makes the chain successful. And I always found it my calling to help independents have the same systems and tools that chains use without losing your independence. We love our guests, we love our employees, but we are going to do what they do well, and that's what? Restaurant owners, what is that? It's make money. Now, as I was finishing up there, I started another business where I created a restaurant training and coaching company back in 2003. And it grew, it blew up. I did seminars and workshops and coaching programs and literally worked with thousands upon thousands of restaurant owners and managers. I built an online software package that literally I think to this day is the best for independent operators. I still believe that. And just this past May 2019, my business partner approached me along with a group of members to buy me out. So I took that. And so for the last 16 years, I've been helping independents, and I found myself here so excited. I've started a company on my own, Take Action Enterprises LLC, which is davidscottpeters.com, which will be an online training system. But what I'm really excited about is I'm now a principal at the Largo Group, a restaurant accounting firm. And it was somebody that I recommended to our members, I believe in, and I cannot wait to share with you some of the things that I've learned, the insights, and why I'm excited about joining that company. So now, what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover what I call the FMQ. That's the Restaurant Owner Financial Management Quadrant. This is key of what successful restaurant owners do when it comes to accounting. What do they know? What are their best practices? We're going to go through a quick case study on one of the people I've worked with on both sides, as far as my last company and currently. I'm going to go through the 5 things, really 5 best practices in restaurant accounting, and then we're going to go over to 5 pitfalls, what you need to avoid. And for those that are willing to stick around, want to learn more about what the Largo Group can do for you, I've got a special offer for you, and we're going to finish that up because we at the restaurant, at this restaurant accounting firm, the Largo Group, I just get so excited about it. We're a flat fee restaurant accounting system, meaning you'll never get overbilled. In fact, call all day long and all the services that come along with it. For those of you who want to learn about that and some of the bonus offers I have for you, stick around. I'll talk about the evolution of restaurant accounting and what we're going to be doing for you. Now, first, let me kind of talk to you about why I'm qualified to talk about this today, because I'm not a CPA. I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not an accountant. I can play one. Because the experience I had at Coyote Springs really kind of was my crash course. I'm an OJT kind of guy, on the job training. Now, it started off with, we had fired our accounting firm 2 years earlier. This is before I became the operations manager. So I was a bar manager or a manager working 2 locations, waiting for the 3rd location to be mine. Couldn't tell you exactly when, but my owner fired the accounting firm. Well, we didn't file our taxes for 2 years. We didn't do a bunch of stuff. I mean, we got audited. I mean, it was just a nightmare. But I moved into an operations role, and I had to all of a sudden tie out 2 years of books. What does that mean? I had to reconcile every freaking account. Now, think about it. If you're at home and you're just reconciling your personal account, that's a challenge enough. But as every one of us on this broadcast know, if you have a restaurant and you start reconciling credit card statements, not the ones that we swipe and we buy stuff with, the credit cards that come in are merchant account. Heck, we have American Express that decides to take a single day and split it into 2 different batches, and you're supposed to figure it out. We've got, MasterCard and Visa, they deposit 100% and swipe out a big charge once a month, where American Express takes their money, and we've got to figure that out. Well, every banking account, right? So checking account, payroll accounts. Oh, I had 2 restaurants. I had to do this for all of it. Then you go through and you have to reconcile everything else. We'll talk about tying out a balance sheet in a second. Now, with that said, it was a ton of work. And we discovered things like, for instance, I discovered that, this is how old I am, right? I'm old. Diners Club. We were shorted $20,000 in Diners Club. That's a credit card. For those youngsters who don't know, that was like an American Express, MasterCard, Visa. I discovered that late. Now imagine what you could do. How does that affect your cash flow, $20,000? So it was a crash course in reconciling and making sure it's all right. Then I had to create profit and loss statements for every single month. That meant I tied out the balance sheet. Everything on the balance sheet, and we're going to go into that in great detail in a little bit. Everything on the balance sheet, if you reconcile it and that trial balance is correct, then your profit and loss is correct. I did that for 2 years worth of P&Ls before I was actually going to get married. This is 1997. I spent the last 2 days in the office, never went home, never went to sleep to finish these because I wanted to deliver it to my boss before I went and got married and was going to go on a honeymoon. So I'm telling you, I know the stuff inside and out. Cash flow management. Oh my gosh. As an independent operator, I've made every mistake you've ever thought of making. And every time you make a mistake, it costs you what? Do I need to tell you? It's your money, right? Most expensive education you'll ever have. Well, I'm doing this at Coyote Springs, and it's not my money, but I'm taking it personal. It's my name. It's my money. Again, it's not mine. It was my owner's, but I treated it like mine. Well, I sat there and started looking at cash flow. The way I learned about cash flow is my boss, Bill, walked into the office and said, hey, me and my family, we're going to go to Ireland and we're going to tour the Guinness brewery. How exciting is that? We're a brew pub. We have 2 locations. It's going to go to Ireland, go see how it's really done. Fantastic. He says, oh, by the way, you're paying the bills. I had already been doing basic bookkeeping, but now I'm responsible to pay the bills. Well, he hadn't been gone very long when I had to make the disturbing phone call to call him and say, hey, Bill, we're not going to make payroll. And then get instructed to call our investors to have a cash call so we can make it. See, I learned one incredible lesson, that cash is king, right? Profits don't pay your bills. Who cares about your profit and loss if you don't have cash to pay your bills? I learned that lesson big. And I learned you can't just blindly pay bills. You have to have a plan in place. Right? Because how many times have we found ourselves as independent operators hitting that 3 payroll month in your worst month of the year when sales drop like a rock and you're paying your bills off from when you were busy and you have 3 payrolls and we're like, oh my gosh, here I am again. With the right planning, you can avoid that. Last but not least, a part of this, I really learned the importance of budgets. Heck, I built a company on it. I often tell people the 2 most important systems you could ever have in place as an independent operator are budgets and recipe costing cards. By the way, what are the 2 systems most restaurants never have in place, right? Budgets and recipe cost cards. Why? They're so hard. Boo frickin' who? A budget is critical to taking you from being a reactive management team to a proactive management team. Well, I learned how important it was not to only have a budget, but to frickin' follow the budget. Who cares if you put it down if you don't measure it every single month, if you don't make sure you stick to, if you're going to spend $5,000 in marketing, that's what you get, man. You don't get extra. Now, I want to go into what I call the restaurant owner financial management quadrant. This is what successful restaurant owners do when it comes to accounting. Now, the first is being a proactive management. I kind of went over that, but we'll touch on that in a little greater detail here, and that is budgets. How do you know what success looks like in your restaurant if you don't have a budget? Are you going to use industry averages? Is your restaurant average? Are you in the same street corner, same price point, same style of service, same quality of product? No. So what are averages good for? Nothing. We've got to create a budget for you and your business. See, somebody on this webinar right now owes Cisco $50,000 is trying to pull themselves out of a hole. Somebody owes their landlord 2 months' rent. They've got to pull out of a hole. We got somebody else on here who's making a ton of money and is looking to make that 1-2 point change because your food cost has gone up, or $15 minimum wage in California just stole money from you. Your labor went from, and depending on where you are, from $10 to $11 an hour, right? And all of a sudden, or is it, I'm sorry, $11 to $12, and it's going to go to 15. That was a 9.09% increase in cost in payroll if you raised everybody up, because how do you not? Which could rob you 2 to 3 points to your bottom line, and you haven't done anything. So we've got to create a plan for success. That budget is critical. And then you need, on top of that, is weekly cash flows. You need to see forward, right? You need to see where you may have a hiccup to make sure you save enough acorns along the way that even though you're going to be in the red for that month, you're in the black financially when it comes to your bank account, right? That's critical. This is what successful restaurant owners do. Next, pro forma analysis. You got to comb through your numbers. And there's 2 things that a successful restaurant owner does. One, demands that they have their profit and loss statement delivered to them within 5 days after they've delivered all the information to their bookkeeper or accountant. Why should I be waiting 30, 60, 90 days for my numbers? I pay you. I need that data because if I have a budget and I have my actuals, I can see where I hit or miss and change my plan, right? Because we don't always hit budget. That's an idea, but that which we measure improves. And when I see I've lost money, I don't just accept it. I change my plan the rest of the year to make it back without giving up guest satisfaction, without cutting product quality, without cutting service levels. The other part is when a successful restaurant owner looks at their numbers and verifies that they're accurate. We just don't get the piece of paper in the mail or via email and go, there it is, oh, damn, or print it off our QuickBooks, our Restaurant 365, get it off of Compete or Xero, any of those restaurant accounting packages out there. Don't care. If your numbers aren't right, it affects every decision you make. Because let's say you decide that you're going to buy a piece of equipment because your numbers show you made 20 grand, but there was a mistake and somebody makes a change to it. And all of a sudden you lost $10,000, but you made a commitment. You already paid the 20 grand that you didn't have. So successful restaurant owners, they make sure those numbers are accurate, that their numbers have been tied out. Now, what else? They prioritize payments. That cash flow example I gave you when I was at Coyote Springs and just paid bills until all of a sudden I had no money. I had to call and ask. I hope nobody on this webinar has ever felt that way, because it is a horrible feeling. And that wasn't even my money. This is your money. This is your business. So successful restaurant owners look out there and say, hey, let's plan our cash outlay. Let's pay attention to our week by week by week, what's happening with our sales. And if our sales went down, we adjust that budget, that cash flow budget, and we see what we can do. And we create a plan for paying bills once a week. We know what we can pay based on what's happening. We look out forward and we know what we can pay. We can't pay because let's say sales drop. We see a bill. We know we got to move it a week or two, right? Who can we move? Like we're not moving any of the money that the government gets, right? Have you ever played with your sales tax money? The penalties and interest is incredible. Payroll money, right? Unbelievable. Don't do it. So we figure out maybe our landlord will let us go 30 days or whatever it may be. Or even if you have a ton of cash, we plan when can we buy that new piece of equipment, right? I want to buy a new bank of fryers. I don't want to finance it. I don't want to lease it. I want to pay for it in cash. Well, you can do that. That's what successful restaurant owners do. And when it comes to payroll, we make adjustments to our payroll. We go from, say, if I was every other week, right, bi-weekly payroll, I may go to semi-monthly because it saves me on a payroll cost. It allows me to put 2 payrolls perfectly in 1 month to know that was my labor cost. That's what successful restaurant owners do. And last but not least, they plan quarterly. Now, here's the deal. Successful restaurant owners don't wait till March to talk to their CPA and say, where are my taxes? And get a surprise tax bill. Successful restaurant owners meet with their CPA on a quarterly basis and say, here's what's going on in my business. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about expanding. What should I do? What are the tax implications? I've added another location. I've added more employees. And now I am required by mandated healthcare to go through all the hoops about supplying healthcare for my full-timers. How does that affect me? Right? All of a sudden, all these things, these discussions that your CPA doesn't know if you don't talk to him. Why would you wait till the end of the year? Let's talk every single quarter. Let's have them look over our shoulder, make sure we're paying our sales tax right, that we don't avoid those kinds of penalties. So what I call the FMQ, the financial management quadrant, this is what successful restaurant owners do when it comes to their accounting. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Greg Kahn. Now, I first met Greg and his father at Pete's Expo, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, long time ago. Great people. I really bonded with them quickly. I started working with them to help them change their restaurant in my past business. But let me tell you a little bit about who Greg is. Greg is a typical restaurant owner. Passion for hospitality, a passion for putting out an incredible product. Like this dude can operate a restaurant. But what was happening is if you want it done right, you got to do it yourselves. He had managers in place, but he was still doing most everything. He was working 6 to 7 days a week. Has a young family at home. Where's dad? What's going on? Right? Working his ass off, driving back and forth from the 2 locations, doing everything himself, and just literally trying to figure out, well, there's got to be a better way. So he started searching. And he started searching for 2 things. First was, is there a better way to run a restaurant? And that's putting systems in place. Took workshops, seminars, right? Came to one of my 4-day workshops, or 3-day at the time. I helped him put in systems, but he did the work. I supplied the data, but he did the work, and he made huge change and was still struggling to try and make sure he knew where his numbers were. Because understanding the operation side of things, only half of it. Then there was the number side. Then he knew he needed to find a new bookkeeper, an accountant who's paying big money for it, wasn't getting his numbers in time, didn't have the data to run his business properly. Well, here was the solution. He put those systems in place, but then looked out and said, I need a new accounting service. He needed to pay attention to spend his time on his operation, working on budgets, marketing, developing his team. What he didn't need to do is sit in front of his QuickBooks and type in data entry, manual entry stuff. He didn't have to reconcile an incredible, hours and hours of data entry / reconciliation of his checking account and his credit cards and all the things that go in there. He needed to find time to lead his business. So all of a sudden he found the right accounting firm. And what did he do? They managed the cash flow for him. He outsourced all of his bookkeeping. He's outsourced his bill payment. He's outsourced his payroll. That he now all of a sudden has somebody else doing all the manual entry and providing him the financial details, the cash flow reports, the P&Ls, the accurate payrolls, so that he can focus on what makes his money and grow his business. Now, here's the result of all that. Yes, part of this was the systems he put in place. And yes, part of this was the accounting, changing and outsourcing it. But it really was his leadership. And through his leadership, he was able to manage his cash flow, increase his profits, to fully fund a third location with no loans, just out of those two businesses. He was able to also cut his accounting in half and save $1,500 a month, getting more done than he was paying for before. See, that financial management quadrant, that's something that this man not only looked at and said, I need to do, he put into practice. So I'm telling you from experience, the things I'm going to share with you, at this point in time, there are people who do it on a routine basis. So if you're looking at your accounting right now and going, man, I don't even know where my numbers are, I don't even know if they're accurate, we got a problem. If you're putting your payroll in yourself, if you're spending all this time in front of a computer because you're trying to save a few $100s, we got a problem. You're losing money. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in your business. Now, here are the 5 best practices I want to talk about now. We're going to talk about timely and accurate numbers. We're going to talk about cash flow planning. We're going to talk about scheduled bill pay and leaving everything in control, meaning your checkbook in your control. Payroll planning, the timing of it, and the cash management side. And last but not least, tax planning on a quarterly basis. This is a part of that FMQ. This is what successful restaurant owners do. These are their habits. Now let's start off with profit and loss statement, right? This is the number one report we think we're supposed to have in our business. Now, I would argue that the balance sheet has a lot to tell you, but let's talk about P&L, right? We get that. When do you get it? I don't know. When do you get it? You rifle the last page, see if you made money or lost money, throw it on the table, go, oh shit. That's not what we got to do. We got to make sure they're right. We got to get them accurately on time. So let's start with a good chart of accounts. What does a good chart of accounts do? A good chart of accounts says you know what's in your P&L. And more importantly, you communicate with your bookkeeper, your accountant, what you want every expense to show up as. See, the last thing I want to do is a great operator doesn't, when I ask them what's in this line item, they go, I don't know. I got to call my bookkeeper. I got to call my accountant. I got to call my CPA. Bullshit. You know. You tell them what it is, but you need to label it out. So let me show you what a good chart of accounts looks like. And this I've been promoting for 20 plus years. So look at this. Here's my profit and loss statement. We start with income. Notice it's not food and beverage, food and liquor. No, it's food, bottled beer, draft beer, wine, liquor, right? Tell you how old I am, cigarettes. We used to sell cigarettes behind the bar. I should drop it, but heck, I don't know. Maybe somebody in Europe is still able to do that, right? Cover charges. I have every sales category listed out. Why? Because when I come to cost of goods sold, they're each on a budget going to have their own target. Each one is going to have its own cost of goods sold. So we mirror those with the cost of goods sold in my chart of accounts. Now I want you to notice one other thing. This is not alphabetical. See, those who use QuickBooks, I learned this when I used to use Peachtree, and there's plenty of other accounting softwares out there. If you insert a general ledger number in front of your chart of accounts label, you can put it in any order you want. And notice I put 10 a gap of 10 in between because you're going to want to add things from time to time in between those. Then we go to wages. My owner's salaries and wages. Notice it's owner salary, admin, management, line cook, dish, ... You must separate. Don't give me front of house, back of house. Don't give me hourly and salary. How can I help you? How can you as an operator look at your P&L and know that you're bleeding in the kitchen, or that you have way too many busters and it's just bleeding you at the time clock? You can't. We must break out every position so that the more detail we have, the easier it is to create a plan. This is what successful restaurant owners do when it comes to their accounting. Then we've got operating expenses. Now notice I break it up, occupancy first. Why? We start with cost of goods sold and labor. That's our prime cost, our two biggest expenses in the restaurant next to an empty chair. And then what's our next biggest expense? Operating expenses, then utilities, and so on. And notice as I go down this chart of accounts, we go to the next slide. We're now office supplies and postage and travel and entertainment, legal. I go to the next slide. And now all of a sudden those expenses get smaller, less important, smaller, less important. This way in the first 1 or 2 pages of my profit and loss statement, I can look at that and say, as an operator, am I doing well? Am I doing poorly? And we get to all the way to the end, we've got interest, amortization, depreciation, things that don't matter to me. Like they're not really cash issues. They're the government making sure we pay taxes. That's all that is. So if you don't have a chart of accounts this detailed, now I'm not telling you have to adopt my chart of accounts, our chart of accounts, but you need it to be this detailed. What's important to you? Again, you tell. Here's the dead truth of this. There is no such thing as a wrong chart of accounts. Just to be very clear, there's no wrong chart of accounts. Mine is not right and yours is wrong. The only difference is a lot of chart of accounts you can't run your business from. They don't tell you anything. They're worthless. Whereas something this detailed, you can make change in your business. And that's what it comes down to. They both pay taxes. Now we're still in the profit and loss statement. What about 5 days? What do I mean by that? Look, successful restaurant owners don't accept getting their QuickBooks file all done, their Xero, whatever they're using. They don't accept it 15, 30, 60, 90 days later after closing out the books. Just think about this. If you get your numbers 60 days, no, let's just do 30 days, right? You were slow to get the data to your CPA. You got it to them by the 15th. They take 15 days to close it out. You're 30 days in right to the next period. You got 1 day left. Let's call it a 30-day month. Holy crap. Say to your chef, your food cost is off. Who cares if they say you're right and I can fix it? It's too late. You've made the same dumbass mistake for 60 days in a row, and now you want me to fix it. So what's critical is getting that P&L. Successful restaurant owners require their CPA, their bookkeeper, their accountant, don't care who you're using, to get your numbers 5 days after you provide them the final data. Like, look, you can't expect your CPA, your accountant, your bookkeeper, whoever you're using right now, to get you books 5 days after a period closes if you don't get them the data. Your credit card statements, right? Your inventories, your power bill, your rent when it comes in. Because remember, it's staggered. You're paying backwards. So 5 days. Now, what does this do? It gives you the ability to proactively change. Now, one of the things I want to talk about, again, here's one of the bad chart of accounts when it says it doesn't have the GL number in front of it, but it's still good. It's broken up by category. There's something called GAAP, GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, that many CPAs, bookkeepers, and accountants follow. And that would be taking your bottled beer, if you'll notice I've highlighted in yellow, and divide that into your total sales line. And that is accurate, but it's worthless as an operator. You need to make sure that your accounting firm is giving you your cost of goods sold divided by category sales. So category cost into category sales. In this case, bottled beer, 3,900 divided into 13,900 in sales says that I'm going to do 28% cost of goods sold. See, if I did it otherwise and went to the $73,000, what would that be? 3-4%? Run your business out. Hey, chef, good job, man. You're running a 12% food cost. Wrong, right? Really important to have your data accurate. This is what successful restaurant owners do. Balance sheet. Remember I said I'd argue that the balance sheet's extremely important. Why? I'm going to tell you the balance sheet is one of the most important parts of your financial statements. For one reason, I talked about that when I told you about my experience. You must require your accounting firm to tie out your balance sheet and reconcile every line item on that chart of accounts. Make sure that you have the working papers that says this trial balance matches what's on the balance sheet and the software. Because when doing so, you're able to do two things. One, you're going to know what tax you're supposed to pay. That is your income. Your profit and loss is 100% accurate. Now, you could miscategorize an expense, put draft purchases in bottled beer. That's still possible. But when it comes to your bottom line, if you tie out the balance sheet, that bottom line, profit or loss, is 100% accurate. You can also run a little known equation called the current ratio, where you take your current assets divided by your current liabilities to come up with a ratio to tell you the health of your business. Because I want $1.25 for every dollar I owe in current expenses. That's a healthy business. So I'm going to tell you right now, a balance sheet's really critical, but nobody ever pays attention to it. So this is kind of a quick example of what I mean by tying out or making sure all the trial balances match. This is me. This is actually the papers I had at Coyote Springs in 1997. And you'll notice down below was a spreadsheet I had for our pour cost, and I matched my ending inventory to match my ending inventory on the balance sheet, that it's accurate. And then I would have had an inventory right behind it of line by line by line, all the detail. Do you have that kind of work being done? Because that's what successful restaurant owners do. They ensure that all the data has been tied out. Now I'm going to give you a little secret. Why is this so important? Steal a little thunder for later. I'll do it right now. Many of you have huge end of the year tax bills. I'm not talking about you, the government. Heck, you might, through tip credit and all these things, if you're using a restaurant accountant that understands restaurants, you probably have almost nothing to pay in your business. Now you have some personal, but the business, nothing. But you've got this $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 tax bill. See, I tell you, I think reasonable for most corporate tax returns, $2,000, $3,000. That's reasonable. When you start getting to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, I've seen worse. It means that your CPA, your bookkeeper, your accountant, somebody, whoever's your financial advisor when it comes to your numbers, has not been tying out the books. So they're tying out a year's worth of books at the end of the year, right in tax season. So they have to do all these hours of work that has to be done to balance right in January, then do February, then do March, and so on. So there's all these billable hours. So if your accountant does this right away every single month, guess what? Your tax return shouldn't take any time when it comes to the corporate side. Tied out really well. That's the balance sheet. This is what successful restaurant owners know. What about cash flow? Right? We talked about cash flow. Well, number one, it's proactive planning. I told you when I was at Coyote Springs, I paid bills. I just paid them because they were in there. And then I had no money to make payroll. Now, it could have been very easily move a couple bills off. Maybe at that point in time, we're struggling in our downtown location. Maybe it was be a little bit late. Don't care if with our landlord. We could have come up with a plan, but instead we were out of money. So successful restaurants, they make sure they cash flow. And I'm talking about a 52 period cash flow. I need to know week to week to week when I'm going to have a hiccup. I need to be looking at that to proactively plan. Can I afford to redo my bar? Can I open the second, third, fourth location? Can I buy the new bank of fryers? Hell, can I buy that truck I've been dying to buy? That's what cash flow planning does. Understanding your bank balance. I'm going to tell you as an operator, now, again, I'm old. So when I was tying out books, we didn't have online banking. We had phone banking. Hey, old timers, I'm going to be 53 here. Okay. Do you remember phone banking? You'd have to listen to your last transactions. You'd listen to what your bank balance was. But the truth of the matter is that's not reconciled. And even then I'd go into my QuickBooks and I'd call up and those numbers would be so far apart. Wouldn't it be nice to go, I think I'm supposed to have $40,000 in the bank. Call up and you have about $40,000 in the bank. That's incredible. That gives us the confidence to run our business, pay our bills, know that we can make it. That's what cash flow planning does. And the biggest thing for me is it avoids those hazards. Again, the cash call, I'm out of money. You can see 45 weeks from now because the holiday hit and all the kids go back to school or whatever it may be, all of a sudden you're going to have a red month. And you know how much money you need to have in the bank, in the coffers, in cash to overcome the fact that you're going to lose money, even if you run properly, because that's what it is in the season. That's confidence. You want to sleep at night? Do you know how great restaurant owners sleep at night? Like babies. Because why? They know. Because even if they're having a challenge in that business, they know they need to borrow money. They way out in advance. They know they need to cut expenses way out in advance. They know they need to change their plan, lower their labor, lower their food costs, make a change in what they do way in advance. Do you have that kind of control in your business? This is really important. That's all coming from our financials, and part of those being cash flow reports. You know what else successful restaurant owners do? When they look at this, they tie their bookkeeper account into it. Because you'll notice in the sample report that first we've got net revenues. Now, I always tell you use gross revenues when it comes to your profit and loss statement for prime cost. Because I asked chef to put out a $10 burger, use $3 in product, 30% food cost. If I comp $5 net sales, food cost now 60%. That's not the chef's fault. I want to give chef credit for 10 bucks. That's gross sales. But when we cash flow, when we look at cash flow, we look at it in net sales. Because I didn't collect that money. That $5, that comp, that money's gone. Okay? Gone. So we use net. And then we have cost of goods sold based on, how we're operating, our labor costs. We know our prime costs. We have a gross profit operating. But see, this next section gets a little bit harder. This is why you got to have a good CPA. You got to have a good accountant, good bookkeeper. Don't care. I keep calling all three because I don't know who you're using right now. I'm going to tell you on a side note, a great restaurant owner isn't using a CPA to do bookkeeping work. They may be using the bookkeeper on their team because that's like bringing a tank to a gun battle. And most CPAs can't do most. I happen to be a partner with one that is miraculous and unbelievable, understands operating a business and the book side of things. But the fact is most don't know. They know taxes. They know how to plug stuff into the software and tell you what you do, tax plan. Well, you need to pull your financial professional in because look at this. We've got bank balances, inventory balances. If my inventory goes up or down, it changes my cost of goods sold, right? I used more product if my inventory goes down. We look at our assets. Did you buy a piece of equipment, spent money on it? Oh, do I have accounts payable? Did I run up a ton of money on my credit card and that's due? Like all of a sudden you put all this data in and you look down in yellow, we can see where our shortfalls are. You'll notice on the second week, column D, that we have a $42,000 shortfall. I don't even have any of the data in there, right? Why? Notice at the top, payroll is hitting in the week it's going to be paid. See, it's not accrual accounting, it's cash accounting. And this way I know, do I have the money? I need to save up acorns because it's going to go flush. This is what successful restaurant owners do. This is what they know. What about bill pay? This is one that is kind of new to us as operators because technology has changed everything for us. Now, I can tell you as an operator, when I was at Coyote Springs, I'd print up the checks, I'd take them to my boss, and he would sign them. And then I would mail them. Well, that's changed. And I was an operations person, so for all intents and purposes, it had an internal bookkeeper. Not all of us as operators have internal bookkeepers. You have an internal bookkeeper, you can leave it that way. You can use outsourced bookkeeping to do a lot of the heavy lifting and allow them to do more for you. But the fact of the matter is, we now have online bill pay. We have all these different things can make life easier. Computers, software, the cloud. So the first thing I will tell you, a smart restaurant owner, a successful restaurant owner pays bills once a week. Not 7 days a week, not every day. Think about the psyche. If you're paying bills every single day, man, it just beats you down. I'd rather have one day that I want to vomit and sign checks. So 1 day a week you plan. Now remember that cash flow planner? It's going to help you decide when that's supposed to happen. Successful restaurant owners have also determined they don't need to be the one writing their damn checks. You outsource it. I would be having my bookkeeper or accountant, whether internal, external, actually pay my bills. And whether it's load them up in QuickBooks, print them off at a different location, and I print them locally and I sign them, or we tie everything to your online banking. The most amazing thing with online banking anymore, bill pay, is you can still have control of your checkbook and decide what goes out, but somebody else can kind of line it all up and you can approve, boom, done. right? You want to save time. You want to make sure that everything's planned based on your cash. And I keep going back to cash is king. See, one of the things that when I first joined the Largo Group, and Ann Gannon, our CPA, resident CPA, founder and principal of the company, we were like going over reports. And I said, you know what, the one report independent restaurants need? It's that cash flow report. Because quite honestly, I don't take profits of the bank. I take cash. And she and I worked literally a full day going in and out. And it's with clients. It's been molded, changing all the time. And it is probably the most valuable thing that our restaurant owners have. Because why? Like Greg Kahn, right? The case study, he could determine he could fund a third location without borrowing money. That's incredible. Payroll. Payroll is a big one. Time and cash management, right? I talked about some restaurants pay every other week, right? Bi-weekly, which ends up 2 times a year, 3 payroll month, which like miraculously, we think it never happens, but it happens every year. And one of them's your worst month of the year, and you grab a paper bag and, right, we hyperventilate, right? Oh my God, what do we do? So there's a change to be made. Now, if you're on 13 period accounting, that's a restaurant that's on 13 4-week periods. I'd be on weekly payroll. If I were a 12-month accounting restaurant, I might think about weekly payroll too for cash purposes, meaning I can manage my cash really, really well by week. But 13 period, absolutely weekly, because I've got 4-week periods, all good. If I'm calendar accounting where I can simplify my life and make sure my books are right, because how many times have you looked at your QuickBooks file, your P&L, wherever software you're using, and you go, that's not my labor, that doesn't look right, because half a payroll belongs in the next month, but it's how it got paid and showed up in your book because you're doing it by cash. Instead, when I do semi-monthly, that's the paid date starts on the 1st, goes to the 15th, paid on the 5th. I'm sorry. Yeah, 1st to the 15th, paid on the 20th. I'll get that right out of my mouth. Then the next payroll is the 16th to the last day of the month. Doesn't matter if it's 28 or 31, paid on the 5th of the next period. Now, when I take those 2 payrolls, they fit perfectly in monthly accounting that I know, by goodness, that is my labor cost when I look at my P&L, my number one report card. So successful restaurant owners have figured that out. Do you know what else they do? They don't do the damn data entry. Number one, they're not doing payroll themselves. They're outsourcing payroll. But more importantly, if they truly want to make a difference, they get those hours, 2-3 hours of data entry off their plate and handed to their bookkeeper or accountant to actually put it in for them. You get a second set of eyes, and it speeds up, which allows your managers to be on the floor, to be training. It allows you to be out marketing, working on leading your team, developing your managers, things that truly have a dramatic impact. Hell, focusing on the guest instead of a damn number that doesn't mean anything. It's a task. This is what successful restaurant owners do. They move off that pressure, and again, they pay attention to the cash. Now, the 5th thing we talk about is the tax planning, quarterly basis. First of all, we take a holistic approach. A restaurant owner meets with their CPA on a quarterly basis and looks at the whole picture. So if you've got 5 other businesses, right? You got your rental properties, you've got a drugstore, you got a gas station, you got a hotel, and you got this restaurant. You got 5 restaurants. You got a restaurant and a pet grooming. I'm telling you, I've seen everything. Well, you need to look at everything when it looks at your tax liability. So you've got to be sharing and talking about that, looking at all your streams of income and how it's going to affect things. You got to be meeting with them to talk about improvements. You can add a location, you can add equipment, how best to do that. Have the tax laws changed? When should I buy a truck? I remember one year as an operator, my CPA's like, do you need a truck? Because they changed the law and you can write off the majority of that truck right away. Let's do that. Right? Are you doing that? Or are you waiting to the last minute? Successful restaurants look at their sales tax, not just income tax. Am I collecting properly? Have I verified my POS system has what the new tax rate is? And if I've got locations, let's say here in Arizona, you go from city to city, the city tax is different. So I might have 8.7 in one location and 9.3 in another location because of the city taxes. Are we collecting properly? Are we paying it properly? Are we factoring in that if I'm not collecting sales tax on my receipt at the bar, that I'm paying as an expense the tax that's due. If I'm collecting too much because I made an error, am I paying it 100% of it to the government because I'm not allowed to keep it? It's against the law. I need a tax professional to help me. That's what successful restaurant owners do. You need an expert in your court. I'm going to tell you right now, laws change. And if anybody had a challenging year last year, it was every CPA in the United States, because it was one of the biggest tax changes in our tax code in forever. And everybody was behind because regulations were coming late, and everybody had to look at your stuff, right? All this. So do you have a CPA that's keeping abreast of the changes? Are they taking, and here's the beautiful part about CPAs, they're required by law to stay up on education, but are they taking the right classes? Do they understand? Not all accountants and CPAs are equal. Last but not least, when it comes to tax planning, I want no surprises. So there's nothing worse than, as an operator, I can remember one point in time where I paid, they tell me it doesn't sound familiar, I paid all of my employees, I paid all my managers, I paid my rent, my utilities, I paid all my bills, and because we were having cash flow problems, I didn't pay myself. And I owed money at the end of the year. I went apeshit. At the time, my CPA was a good friend of mine. I lost it. I was screaming, I was yelling, and dude, I'm one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, but I was pissed. I'm like, you are shitting me. I didn't pay myself, and you're telling me I've got to take a loan out with the federal government because I owe money and go on a payment plan? Are you shitting me? We get to the tax time, and this is when I discover it? Well, now, right, put into practice. And with any member or any client or anybody I work with, you've got to be meeting with your tax preparer every quarter. No surprises, man. None. Now, those are the 5 things you got to do. This is what successful restaurant owners do. But now let me paint you a picture. I made it sound pretty easy, but it ain't. Right? You all know, you run your businesses, you know the challenges you have on a daily basis. So here are some of the challenges, the pitfalls that I find. Number 1, getting your numbers. You get them late. I cannot tell you how many restaurants that I've worked with, and I'm telling you, I've worked with thousands upon thousands over the last couple decades. And I see their numbers and I go, why are these 90 days late? Well, I can't get my bookkeeper or accountant to give me my numbers. Bullshit, who pays them? You're kidding me. If you get that data so late, you cannot measure against your budget. You cannot make changes. You cannot run a good business. You're just looking backwards, man. It's like driving a sports car with the front windshield blacked out, using your rearview mirror to drive forward. You're going to crash. I need to use my budget. And the only way I can use my budget is have my actuals, and I can measure as quick as possible in order so I can make change in my business. Unreadable reports are not at all. Well, we kind of addressed the not at all part. But man, I get a P&L and I look at it, and it doesn't make sense to me. If I literally look at it and go, I don't know what's in every one of those buckets, it's meaningless. I have no idea if they did it right. I have no idea if my management team supplied all the right data, and I'm looking at good information. So I'm going to make bad decisions because I've got bad information. Or what about cash flow? I just went through how important cash flow is. 99 out of 100 bookkeepers or accountants will give you a cash flow report. They're going to say it's in your QuickBooks file. It is one of the shittiest freaking reports out there. It looks backwards, and you need like a math degree or a science degree to freaking understand it. I don't care what happened in the past. What do you care about? The future, right? So all of a sudden, I've got these professionals not giving me the data I want, paying my bills blindly. Even if you're using your bookkeeper to pay your bills, how often have you found yourself in a cash crunch? Right? As an independent operator, cash is king, man. You can't pay blindly. So all of a sudden, you sit there, it's a great idea to give somebody my bills to pay. But if there's no cash flow report, if there's no constant back and forth, I abdicate my checkbook, I'm in deep shit. 4, overpaying for everything. Look, I'm a proponent of outsourcing your payroll, but I can't tell you how many payroll companies nickel and dime you to death. You got to pay for every new hire, right? So think about turnover now with the millennials and everything that's going on. You have turnover, right? Every time you hire somebody, you got to pay for that. Oh, you increase the number of employees you have, you pay more on your payroll. Oh, wait a second. Every payroll that goes out, I pay for it. Oh, there's more. Wait a second. I got to put all that data in myself, cost me time. Oh, end of the year, W-2s. The big payroll companies charge $5 per W-2. Now, if I have an average of 40 employees in my restaurant, some restaurants may have gone through 80 employees because of the nature of the business today. Well, that's 80 times $5 gone. So all of a sudden, if I've got you going to weekly payroll and you were bi-weekly or semi-monthly, I've just doubled your payroll cycle, it goes up. So all of a sudden, these great ideas sound really expensive and difficult. Last but not least, last-minute surprises, right? Most of us are not meeting with our CPA. Most of us are afraid to call our bookkeeper, our accountant, our CPA. Why? The moment you call, what happens, everybody? Tick, 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 tick. They start charging you by the 15 minutes. If it's a 5-minute call, that's 15 minutes. They go 16 minutes, that's 30 minutes. And at $300 an hour, $350, $400, right? Who are you working with? Oh my gosh, you don't want to call them. So you are going to have the surprises. You aren't going to have good data. You're just going to accept what comes in and wait to the end of the year and have them tie out all of your books because you're just putting off the pain. That's the reality. What if I told you I had a solution for you? What if I told you I could fix all that for you? Are you interested? Those of you who are interested, stay with me. I want to tell you about the Largo Group. Right? I told you that I was excited that I got to join the Largo Group because as a non-CPA, as a non-bookkeeper accountant, I view this as a service business, not a bookkeeping service or tax service. I want us to deliver you a hospitality experience, that you are communicated with all the way, that you are coddled, you are given what you needed, you are helped, because that's my world, hospitality, man, that's your world. And we've developed so many things that are just really earth-shattering, groundbreaking when it comes to monthly accounting, tax work, book work. So how'd you like to stop guessing? How'd you like to not be looking over your shoulder and wonder what your tax bill is? How'd you like to have everything locked in? Because what we do here at the Largo Group, and this is the number one thing that excited me next to the fact that they were already a restaurant accounting firm and now I'm a part of it. Flat fee bookkeeping. What do I mean? As soon as your price is set based on the size of your location, meaning how many employees you have, what services you want us to do, that's it. That's your bill. Flat fee. Call every single day. In fact, we're going to call you on a weekly basis. We're going to use something, we use something called Monday.com, which is a project manager. And you're going to be able to log in at 2 o'clock in the morning and see where am I on my reconciliation? Is my P&L tied out yet? What paperwork you waiting on for me? All communicated in a group situation. So you don't have to wait and go, oh, I got to call tomorrow. You can log in and see. We're going to give you cash flow reports on a weekly basis and meet with you monthly, if not weekly, if that's what you need. Our team is going to reach out to you to make sure numbers are right. Make sure that if we're waiting on data, we're not just waiting and waiting and waiting, and all of a sudden your numbers are behind because you got one manager who didn't send invoices. We're going to be on top of that. And oh, by the way, all that, there's no extra cost. I'm going to give you a hint. I don't know if you go on the internet and you look up the word Largo. It has something to do with music, and it means methodical. See, we've determined, Anne, our founder, she determined that she wanted to be methodical. She didn't want her team, our team, to rush through things, to kick things out, to keep your bill low. She wanted them to be accurate. So Largo means methodical. We're the Largo Group. We can be methodical to make sure everything's accurate without you being charged out the ass for it. Payroll, data entry, new hires, W-2s. We can do your payroll for you. We'd like to do it for you. I'm going to tell you why. If we do your payroll for you, you save us 5-10 hours in work because we can take the payroll and zip it right into your accounting software. And we know it's accurate, and you have line by line by line. We're not typing in a summary. We are so wanting that to be done that we're willing to literally make your payroll costs in half for most people. We're going to give you, as a part of your monthly accounting fee, we're going to build payroll in. You hire a new person, nothing extra. You add 13 more employees because you're seasonal, nothing extra. Oh, you get us your data. We're going to put it into the system for you, have a second set of eyes to make sure it's accurate. But we're going to take those couple hours and do the data entry and submit your payroll. W-2s, end of the year, don't care how many employees you have, zero extra charge. It's built into your flat fee bookkeeping. Weekly cash flow reporting. This is incredible. I told you that Ann and I spent a day literally going through it, then working with some of our top clients, refining it. Now we provide our clients a weekly cash flow budget. We may start off by doing the first few months to make sure all the data is there. You're going to participate in it, and then we'll extend it out 52 periods. Because that way you can see, you can plan, you can know. We'll take over bill pay if you'd like. And we'll do our very best to make it mirror exactly how you're doing it right now. But imagine you still have control of your checkbook, but because we're meeting on a weekly basis, we know your cash flow, we can help you decide what bills need to be paid, and you get to okay it or not. But you don't have to do it. That's included in your flat fee accounting services. Free corporate tax return. Look, man, you want to get to the end of the year and get hit with a $2,000, $3,000 bill? No, it's included. Because I told you earlier, if we tie out your books every single month, we made it easy, man. There's nothing to do your tax return. It's punch some numbers into some software when it comes to the corporate side of things, right? Nothing. So we include it. No extra charge. Last but not least, restaurant coaching, training, and support. Look, I come from hospitality. I came and built a successful restaurant training coaching company with software. My partner bought me out along with some members. So now here I'm in accounting. Guess what? I'm still a restaurant coach. I'm still here to help. So you're going to get access to me two different ways. Starting next month, I'm opening up my schedule on a weekly basis, unless I'm traveling, to our clients, that you can book a 1-hour call with me once a month to work on your business. I don't care if it's talk you off a ledge, it's teach your manager cost of goods sold, or review your P&Ls, or work on budgets. You have access to me. On a monthly basis, much like this webinar, I'm going to have a group coaching call where I'm going to teach for about 30 minutes and then open up the lines for 30 to 45 minutes for anybody on the call that needs some help. Imagine. Oh, there's even more. We have recently brought on a new stellar tax person that's come from one of the big four, that's all we down, 4 accounting services in the tax department, to bring incredible knowledge that we're going to call you on a quarterly basis to make you look at your numbers, to talk about all these things. And it doesn't matter how complex it is, big 4. Like there's nothing you're going to be able to throw at us that we can't handle on an already 40+ year full tax service. We're really excited about that. Now, let me kind of give you some of the brass tacks. You're probably wondering, what does it cost? I'll answer questions for everybody here in another slide. But here's the deal. A typical restaurant can start as low as $450 a month. Like with Greg Kahn, he saved 50% on what he was paying and got a lot more. You could have the same thing. Now, you're thinking $450, that's where it starts. A typical restaurant, I'm going to tell you, is about $700, $800. A typical restaurant, if we're doing all these services for you. You may elect out of some of them. You have an internal bookkeeper. You have somebody else doing your taxes. We're going to bend with you. It's not all or nothing. But I'm telling you right now, if it were me, it would be all or nothing, because we know it can be accurate. We can save time, save you money, and really be an advisor on your side. But imagine, many of us are paying $500, $800, $1,000, $1,200. I see it all the time for just basic bookkeeping that's wrong, let alone all those services. So if you'd like to be like those successful restaurant owners, you can. We can help you do it in an incredibly cost-effective way. Now, but wait, I should sell ShamWows. Wait, there's more. Look, if you make a phone call with us, you get on the phone with us, we're going to give you different opportunities. Next slide, I'm going to give you a phone number to call. We're going to send you an email with a link that you can say, raise your hand, call me, or get on a calendar and actually book an appointment. I'd rather you call, because right now I've got Ann waiting for your call. We're going to give you a bonus. If you give us a call, you allow, or we call you, whatever it may be, and we learn about, do a discovery call, initial consult. We learn about you and your business, how you're doing your books right now, your accounting. And we can learn the ins and outs. And we tell you what we do, and we see if there's a possible fit. And we're not right for everybody. We just like to think we are. If we see there's a possible fit and we set up another call, whatever it may call, you decide that you want to sign up and start to use our services 30 days after today. We're going to give you these 2 bonuses for free. First is a $1,000 bonus, which could make you $3,000 to $10,000. Do I have your attention? We're going to review your last 2 years' tax returns. We're going to go into them, look in the file, go ask you questions, the whole thing. We typically find that most restaurants, we do this, regain $3,000 to $10,000 right back in their back pocket. We will refile those for you for free. That's $1,000. Next, we're going to review your accounting file. Look, you're going to switch from somebody else. It is now, however months we're into the year, right? And you look backwards and go, I've got all this stuff and it looks bad and I don't know what to do. Hey, we're not judges. We're going to review every single month, whether it's 1 month, 11 months, or 12 months, at no cost. We will comb through, make the adjustments, talk to you about each one before we make the adjustment. You're still in control of your numbers, but you're going to be in the know, and we're going to fix it all up so that when it comes time to pay your taxes, when it comes time to get into the routine that every month you're doing what successful restaurant owners do, you're there. That's an $800 value. So $1,800 value. All you got to do is give us a call, decide if we're right for you. And if we are, and you sign up within the next 30 days, you'll get those services. So let me sum it all up, and then I'm going to take your questions. First of all, flat fee accounting and payroll services. Comes with weekly cash flow and bill pay. Comes with a free corporate tax return, restaurant coaching, and the free bonuses. If you want to learn more how we at the Largo Group might help you become one of those successful restaurant owners, I want you to call Ann Gannon right now. She's the founder of the company. I'm not sending you to a salesperson. Hell, I'm not even sending you to me. I'm sending you to the founder. You want to talk to the person, talk brass tacks, ins and outs. Ann's the person. You can call her at 617-202-6674. That's 617-202-6674 at extension 106. I want you to do it right now. I'm going to answer questions, but she's waiting on the phone right now. That way we can set up a time, even if it's just to set up a time that's right for you, so we can go over things. We can see if there's a possible fit. Now, if anybody has any questions, you can either type it in the chat window or there is a question control on the Zoom. I'll be happily answer your questions. So that concludes my presentation side, but let me answer questions right now. I've got a question right now. Move something over here. I've got a question. Susan's asked, how do I get all of my information? How do you get all my information if you're remote? It's a great question. We actually work with clients all over the world. And many of that was because of my past life, of the recommendations I made over to Largo Group. Technology is amazing. You can simply take your phone and with a free scanning app, make a PDF and send it. We use an encrypted website, kind of like a Google Docs or just a file sharing service. Throw it on up there, but it's encrypted because it's your damn data. We'll get logins to your POS system. If you're using a back office software like a Smart Systems Pro or a Restaurant 365, your POS, we'll log in, we'll grab the data. We make it very simple. In fact, we still have some clients who are old school, and they put the invoices in the mail. Now, it's really inexpensive anymore to get things shipped back and forth. We can handle it. So getting your data is no problem. Let me see what other questions we have. Got a question from John. I live in California. Are you familiar with California sales tax rules? Glad you asked that question. Yeah. I didn't mention it. As a part of one of our services, as a flat fee, when I just say generally accounting, we'll file and pay your sales and use tax license. Well, we've got 40 plus years in our tax department. And in fact, we've got just the best person in the world, Chrissy, who goes out of her way to stay up on all the municipalities, what the rules are. She'll do the research. Hell, if there's a discrepancy or you've got to talk to your state about something, she'll get in between you and make that phone call for you. No problem. Let's see other questions we have here. Keith says, I have a new deli concept starting in 90 days. I would like to open up with your accounting team. Are startups a part of what you do? Oh, hell yes. Absolutely. This way, because think about it. Number one, you need a budget. Number two, you've got all these capital expenditures that you need to know that they're being capitalized properly, that the depreciation schedule's proper, that you have enough cash to open up your doors. You need to set up a right chart of accounts and set up your accounting systems right out of the gate. So excellent question, Keith. Yes, we can help you absolutely. Let's see, I got another question here. Kim says, I had a nightmare with my last payroll company and I'm a skeptic not to do it myself. So that's not a question. That's a kind of like, why would I give you my payroll kind of thing? I get it, Kim. So here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you right now, I get it. There's some bad payroll companies out there and there's some bad experiences when they're set up incorrectly. I'm gonna tell you right now, the payroll, the way we do it is we're actually licensed to use ADP's, the nation's #1 payroll provider, their software. You're not having ADP do your payroll, you're having us do your payroll, but we're using the best software out there. And because we're doing it, we're making sure your managers get us the right data. We're the second set of eyes to make it accurate. We'll put the data in for you. We have 100% accuracy of exporting your data, that it gets into your QuickBooks file. It's 100% ready. We're saving you time, and we're doing payroll probably half the cost of anybody else. Because I told you why. We're not a payroll company. We're a bookkeeping tax company that wants to make our life easier. So by us doing your payroll, you took hours upon hours of work off our side, even though we're putting the data in for you, because all that stuff, click, comes over. Excellent question. Let's see, other question I have here. I have a good relationship with my CPA, and I'm not interested in changing. That's from James. James, I get it, man. I had a relationship with my CPA, was a personal friend of mine, did my business for a long time till I finally outgrew him. And we don't ever want to change. It feels uncomfortable. We trust them, even though sometimes we don't talk to them but once a year. We get it. We're an accounting firm. We do taxes too. So we've got some clients who literally, we do all the bookkeeping stuff because it saves them money, creates accuracy, gives them the ability to change their business. We do their corporate tax return because it's just like that, which saves them money. And they still have their CPA do their personal stuff. I'll tell you right now, we'd like to do it for you because we'll do it at half price. We'd rather have you all the information in because it helps us. So we'll literally do your personal tax return at half cost because we've already got your business elsewhere. But great question. Another question here, Angelo. We have Heartland Payroll. They obviously have all of the personal information for our 50 employees. Is it possible to have Heartland send the information directly to your company, or would you have to start all over with paperwork? I'm 99% sure. I'm going to need Ann to answer that question on the phone for you, but I'm 99% sure you get us the data, we put it in. So you don't have to get new paperwork from your people. You get us the payroll reports, the data from your payroll company or your employee files. We're going to type it in manually. We're going to get it done. No headaches for you. I'm 99.99% sure. That's an excellent question. Let's see, that was Angelo. So I've got, next question I have is, Mike asks, how does weekly bill pay work? Good question. So what's going to happen is we're going to meet on a weekly basis if necessary, monthly minimum, but especially if you're having a cash flow problem, probably on a weekly basis. One of our financial analysts, not just a staff accountant, but we have a financial analyst on board, or one of our CPAs are going to meet with you and talk about your what's going on in your business. Then, because we know the cash flow report, we plan out the bill pay. And because we're getting your data, whether the encrypted site, however we're logging in, we're grabbing data, like we have logins for everything in whatever you're using. We gather all that data. We can then create those checks and either put them into your QuickBooks file and you can print them and sign them. We can mail them, you can sign them. We can use, a lot of people are now using the online bill pay services with their bank. And so it's just a matter of approval and they send it out. You don't have to put a damn stamp on it. So very easily. I get that done. Another question I have here. Adam S. What if, I can't read that. What if I want you to prepare my individual tax return? I answered that question for you. Maybe you missed that. Happily at 50% off. We got 40 plus years tax experience and just brought in a heavy hitter. We're excited to do your stuff. We'd like to do so. See if I've got one more question. It looks like Lou asked, let's just say, oh, he says, my books are a complete disaster. Okay, I'll put a ... on that. Where would we recommend we start? Look, I want to be very, very clear and created a culture in our business that we call it a no judgment zone. It's kind of like that workout place. I ain't remember what the hell it is, right? For $10 a month, you don't have the muscle heads in there, blah, blah, meatheads. No judgment zone. Look, we get it. There's a lot of bad accountants out there. Bad bookkeeping, especially if you've done it yourself. Just get us your information. We will literally go backwards. We will create a plan to tie everything out and make sure you're accurate. That's not a problem. Let me see if I have any more questions. Doesn't look like going once, going twice. Look, I want to thank everybody for being on today's webinar. The 5 things successful restaurant owners know about accounting and should be doing. I hope you found today insightful, helpful, and you know what you need to do to be successful. And based on those 5 challenges, we can take that off your plate. I'd love to work with you personally as your restaurant coach and as our accounting team to help simplify your process and make you the money you deserve, save you time, save you money. If you want to learn more what we do here at the Largo Group, make sure you give us a call. 617-202-6674. Dial extension 1006. And you're going to talk with our founder, Ann Gannon. Thanks, everybody. I thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you soon and hopefully working with you.